Winners see this video before they succeed, and there's a reason you're watching it now. You weren't random scrolling. Something in the timing of your attention aligned with a threshold you've been approaching for months, maybe years. You're standing at a collapse point, the narrow place where possibility could pin itself to a single outcome. What happens next depends less on hustle and proof and more on how you hold your attention and your identity. This is the moment most people accidentally ruin. This is the moment winners pass. If you're ready to commit to the frequency that prepares you for that passage, subscribe now. It's a small, practical signal you send to yourself, one step toward choosing who you already are. Let me name what's going on in clear language, then give you the frame and the practices people who become winners use before their public breakthrough. No guarantees, no gimmicks, only a map that explains why certain moments feel like lightning and others like noise. Diagnosis: what most people do wrong at the threshold. You've been doing the work. You've learned, launched, iterated. Then there's a pause. The calls slow down, the inbox goes quiet. The nervous habit kicks in. You check, you refresh, you test for proof. You tighten. You try to control the shape of the outcome by grabbing at details, by forcing evidence to appear on your timetable. This is the classic error. Think of a seed you plant in spring. If you dig it up every few days to check the roots, you interrupt the quiet chemistry that makes the shoot break surface. The gardener's job is not to pry at the seed, it's to tend the conditions. Winners learn this. They stop digging. There's another image that helps. Imagine a wave of possibility above you, a field of what could be. Your attention is like a hand reaching down into that field. When you inspect the field obsessively, when you demand to see the result before the system is ready, you collapse a wider range of outcomes into a narrow outcome that may not be what you intended. That collapse is not magic. It's how attention shapes experience, but it's also a space you can learn to navigate. A short note on language. I'll use a few ideas drawn from modern physics and neuroscience as metaphors. Words like superposition, collapse, entanglement, tunneling, coherence. These terms can sound technical. Treat them as useful images to illuminate inner process, rather than literal, laboratory-proof causes of your life. In plain English, they're mirrors, not promises. Core framework: the metaphors that winners actually use. Superposition: the state of could be. Definition in one line. Superposition means holding multiple possible outcomes at once. Plain language translation: before something becomes real, it exists as many potentials. You can imagine different versions of the next year, all alive in the field. Most people try to pin one version by demanding proof. Winners keep the field wide long enough for the right form to settle. Practical implication: stop trying to prematurely specify form. Hold your desire as a direction, not a checklist. Collapse: when attention chooses. Definition in one line. Collapse is the moment a possibility becomes one thing. Plain language translation: when you look with an anxious, controlling energy, you tend to freeze a possibility into the smallest version that will pass your scrutiny. When you look with a relaxed, receiving energy, you allow a richer form to appear. Practical implication: change how you look. Your inner stance matters more than your evidence gathering. Entanglement: the invisible link to your future self. Definition in one line. Entanglement is a metaphor for connection across time and intention. Plain language translation: your future embodied self, the version who has already arrived, is not separate. There is an invisible coordination when you start to act, feel, and decide from that future's language. Practical implication: begin to take instructions from the version of you who already has the results, not from the anxious version who hasn't seen them yet. Tunneling: sudden crossing of a barrier. Definition in one line. Tunneling describes how barriers sometimes resolve abruptly. Plain language translation: many successes don't move incrementally. They appear as sudden openings after a period of quiet alignment. It looks like an impossible barrier that disappears overnight, but behind the scene, coherence has been building. Practical implication: expect abrupt shifts if coherence accumulates. Don't assume no progress because nothing visible is changing. Phase transition: when accumulation becomes a new order. Definition in one line: a phase transition is a sudden reorganization after a threshold is reached. Plain language translation: like water turning to steam, your life can shift qualitatively once enough inner alignment stacks up. That's the moment winners call overnight success, though the work was often slow and unseen. Practical implication: accumulate coherence. Small daily alignment matters more than dramatic but inconsistent action. Decoherence: what happens when you check too soon. Definition in one line: decoherence is when a coherent field breaks into noise. Plain language translation: repeatedly pulling back to test or to doubt fragments the field you're cultivating. Every time you react from wanting and lacking, you scatter the pattern you were building. Practical implication: reduce checking habits that feed scarcity. Replace them with small rituals that preserve coherence. 2 clarifying cautions. First, these terms are metaphors. Use them to sharpen attention, not to claim physics as a direct recipe for wealth or healing. Second, success is not an entitlement. The field is responsive to alignment, but it's not a machine guaranteeing a specific output on command. Winners understand probability, not promise. The counterintuitive prescription: surrender as power. Surrender is a loaded word. Most people read it as giving up. I want to replace that image with something more precise. Surrender here means relinquishing attachment to the exact way an outcome must show up, not abandoning desire. You keep the desire, you keep the direction, but you stop insisting on a particular script. That distinction is the turning point between wanting energy and receiving energy. Wanting energy is busy, grasping, short range. It looks like panic, a rush to measure, a habit of comparing. Receiving energy is quiet, expansive, and confident. It does not mean passivity. It means you choose action from a different internal posture. The action of receiving is selective, intuitive, and aligned with the version of you that already has the result. Think about the difference between a child who begs at the table and a person who's been invited to share a meal. The beggar pushes. The invited guest sits with the confidence that they belong. That guest receives more with less effort. Winners cultivate the invited guest energy. How do you recognize receiving energy in your body? It feels like ease in the chest, openness in the throat, a forward grounding in the pelvis. There's a mild uplift in posture. You breathe slower. Things feel lighter, more centered. In contrast, wanting energy tightens the shoulders, quickens the breath, and creates a rush toward evidence. A few short refrains now that will center you. Release the grip. Receive the gift. Choose the person who has already arrived. Micro-practices winners use, the routines that tune the frequency. Winners aren't mystical. They use consistent, small practices that tune their nervous system and their sense of identity. Below are the core practices you can begin today. Each is practical, repeatable, and designed to build coherence over time. Practice 1. Identity visualization as remembering. Frame: this is not imaginary wishful thinking. It's a short, embodied remembering exercise that helps you inhabit the timeline where your intention is already fulfilled. How to practice: high level. Sit quietly for 2 to 5 minutes. Breathe to settle the body. Picture the version of you who has what you want, not in flashy detail, but in posture, tone, and choice-making. How do they hold themselves? How do they respond to setbacks? What small habits do they do daily? Feel into the physiological shape of that person. Shoulders relaxed but aligned, steady breath, voice measured. Ask one internal question. What would that version of me choose right now? Notice the first small impulse that arises, then let it guide the next action. Mini-script you can use aloud or in your mind. I am the person who receives. I breathe, I feel, I choose from presence. Repeat this phrase 3 times slowly. Use it as a cue before a decision or meeting. Note, do not over-polish inner images into fantasy. Keep them as a functional template for decision-making. Practice 2. The morning identity check. Frame a 3-point check to orient the day toward the receiving self. How to practice? High level. Before your phone, take 30 seconds. Stand, breathe, place a hand on your heart. Say, which version chooses today? If the immediate answer is anxious or lack-based, reframe with a single corrective. I choose to act like the person who already has this. Let that orientation guide one early choice: posture, the tone of an email, whether you accept a meeting. This practice rewires the first minutes of your day so that decisions are filtered through the intended frequency. Practice 3. Embodiment cues: posture, movement, breath. Frame: identity lives in the body. Small physical adjustments produce internal shifts. How to practice? High level. Posture: lift the sternum slightly, ground through the feet, soften the face. Hold for 1 minute. Movement: introduce an intentional movement each day that says, I am already here. It can be a 3-step walk with your head high, a slow stretch, or a confident inhale-exhale sequence. Breath: use a 4-6-8 breath when you need to return to receiving energy. Inhale 4 counts, hold 6 counts, exhale 8 counts. If holding breath is uncomfortable, simply do 4-6 or 4-4. Embodiment cue mini-script. Before a call, stand, take the 4-6-8 breath, and think, this is a receiving action. Practice 4. Gratitude reframe. Recognition, not manipulation. Frame: gratitude is often misunderstood as a tactic to trick the universe. Real gratitude is recognition of what is present, which opens perception to what's possible. How to practice? High level. Each evening, write 3 things you honestly recognize about your day. 1 should be small and physical. I finished a focused hour. 1 relational, and 1 about your capacity. Keep it truthful. Follow each with the sentence, I receive this as part of the path. Sit with the feeling for 10 seconds. Gratitude as recognition does 2 things. It retrains your attention to actual assets, and it loosens the grip of scarcity that causes decoherence. Practice 5. The single question decision rule. Frame: most derailments come from overanalysis and noise. A simple question simplifies. How to practice? High level. When a choice arises, ask, which option is chosen by the future me who already has the outcome? Or ask, which option expands coherence rather than scatter it? Use your body to answer, not rumination. The first somatic inclination is usually the signal. This rule is a practical guard against the final guardian trap of infinite checking. Resistance: the final guardian and how winners navigate it. You will feel resistance. That is not failure. It often shows up at the threshold as discomfort, restlessness, or sudden busyness. Resistance is a kind of testing mechanism. Think of it as the last checkpoint before changing orders within your field. Winners do not melt under this test. They read it. 2 strategies for working with resistance. Strategy A: acknowledge, then redirect. When resistance shows up, name it briefly. That is resistance. Do not amplify it with stories. Then redirect attention to one micro-practice: a breath, a posture cue, or the single question rule. This gives the nervous system a different input and prevents feeding the reactive loop. Strategy B. Time-limited checking. If you must check, make it a contained habit. Allow yourself a short window, say 5 minutes in the morning and 5 in the evening, to look at data or messages. Outside that window, protect the field. Winners set boundaries around checking because every check is a potential decoherence event. A short metaphor to anchor the idea. The final guardian is like a lock on a treasure chest. It is not a punishment. It is an invitation to prove you are ready for stewardship. The way you respond to that guardian determines whether the chest opens to a small, anxious hand or to a steady receiving one. Illustrative example. Optional placeholder. Optional insert, a short 30 to 60-second example of a founder or artist who stalled, then used the single question decision rule and an identity practice to shift into receiving energy, after which opportunities arrived unexpectedly. This is a placeholder to be replaced with an authentic testimonial. Micro-habits winners add to their day. Beyond the core 5 practices, there are small micro-habits that compound. The 2-minute receipt of good pause. Whenever something small goes well, take 2 seconds and feel it fully in the body. This trains your nervous system to catalog positive evidence. The no-prove window. A daily period where you do not seek external validation. No analytics, no inbox to preserve your field. The signal to self. A small public action that marks your commitment, like saving a post, a subtle social cue, or the tiny act of subscribing that you made earlier. These public signals create small accountability without dependency on external proof. Remember, these habits are not magic triggers. They are coherence builders. Winners use them consistently. The compound effect is what allows a phase transition. Turning points, when the field starts to change. At some point, you'll notice a qualitative shift. The indicators are subtle at first. A conversation that arrives at the right time, a resource that shows itself, a door opening where it previously seemed closed. Winners recognize these signs as the field responding to sustained coherence, not as isolated luck. 2 quick ways to discern emergent coherence from false positives. Depth test. Does this opening align with the long-term contour of your intention, or is it a distraction dressed as opportunity? Ease test. Does engaging with this opening feel like expansion, or does it feel like frantic plugging of a leak? If the answer to both is yes, aligned and easy, you're likely witnessing a true tunneling event in your life. If not, you may be tempting decoherence by chasing surface noise. A note about timing. Incubation is not a void. The pause you experience is active. Think of it as an internal pregnancy. Everything that becomes visible later is being formed now. Winners treat that incubation as sacred. They protect it. The social field. Why your proximity matters. You don't operate alone. There are morphic, social, and cultural fields that shape possibilities. Winners choose proximity to people who hold receiving frequency rather than amplify scarcity. That may mean less frenetic networking and more selective alignment. 2 social practices. The boundary check. Notice conversations that drain your coherence. Limit them. Protect your field. The resonance check. Increase time with people who act like the future version of you. Their behavior becomes a model and a mirror. Again, this is practical, not moral. You aren't abandoning compassion. You are strategically allocating attention. Quick myth-busting interlude. Before we move deeper, a few myths to dispel so you don't stall yourself. Myth: surrender equals passivity. Reality: surrender is selective action from a grounded center. It's disciplined, not lazy. Myth: using quantum metaphors means science proves your success. Reality: the terms borrowed from physics are metaphors that map onto attention and nervous system dynamics. They illuminate, they do not guarantee. Myth: gratitude will make the universe give you what you want.
Reality. Gratitude reorients your perception, which increases your odds of seeing and acting on aligned opportunities. It is a perceptual amplifier, not a vending machine. What winners feel that feels like waiting. You will feel as if nothing is happening. That feeling is normal and is part of the test. Winners treat that apparent stillness as fertile ground. They return to their practices again and again. Persistence in this specific way, repetition of alignment practices, is the engine of coherence. A short living example you can use mentally. Think of the stretch of a bow before an arrow releases. The stretch is necessary. If you relax the string too early, the arrow never flies. If you release with control and aim, the arrow goes far. Winners hold the stretch until the right moment, not until fear tells them to shoot. Beginner's schedule for the first 2 weeks. Practical scaffold. If you want a gentle starter plan, follow this simple scaffold for 2 weeks. Morning. Identity check, 30 seconds. 1 embodiment cue, 1 minute. 2 times daily, 2-minute receipt of good pause. Decision rule. When making a choice, ask the single question and respond to the body's first inclination.
Evening. Gratitude reframe, 3 items, 5 breaths of 4-6-8. No heavy rituals, no complex visualizations, just consistency. A brief warning about evidence and impatience. Many people derail because they expect a linear series of signs. That's not how this works. Evidence often arrives in patterns. You may get one small synchronicity and then weeks of quiet. Stay the course. Winners treat each small sign as fuel, not proof, and they maintain practices even when the field seems silent. Ending this section with a metaphor you can carry. Imagine you are at an event horizon, a point in your personal timeline where the context is about to tilt. On one side is the old order, held together by habits and proofs. On the other side is a reconfigured reality that matches a new identity. Crossing requires you to stop pulling at every rope, to quiet the impulses that fragment the field, and to step into the posture that the future version of you already inhabits. Here's the crucial pivot most people miss. You don't wait to become the person who receives. You practice being that person now. The world reconfigures around sustained coherence. That is why winners saw this kind of teaching ahead of their breakthrough. They had already started to rewire their nervous systems and their choices. We've traced the map. We've laid out practices and calibrations. You now have a set of tools to preserve coherence and to become the subject who can navigate the final guardian. The next stage is the pressure test, the moment the field tightens and you are called to make a direct commitment. In the next section, we will move into those pressure points, the forms resistance takes, the precise micro-rituals winners use at the collapse point, and a symbolic commitment that helps mark the passage. When the guardian appears, you will have not only concepts, but live practices that shift your body and attention. Prepare to choose. Prepare to choose. You will meet pressure in shapes you recognize and in shapes that will surprise you. The pressure is neither ultimate judgment nor cosmic punishment. It is a narrow doorway that tests whether you are ready to carry the new order you are calling in. How that test appears depends on your life and your patterns. Below are the forms it commonly takes, followed by the micro-rituals winners use in that exact moment to register their alignment and move through without scattering the field. The pressure dresses as busyness. Suddenly, your calendar fills with urgent things that feel important but are actually distractions. These tasks are polite ways for the nervous system to avoid the riskier work of identity change. When the pressure comes like this, winners stop apologizing and start triaging. They ask, does this task expand coherence or does it fragment it? If it fragments, it gets scheduled later or delegated. If it expands, it is met with a receiving action. The pressure arrives as proof hunger. You feel a sharp itch to check metrics, messages, or performance updates. That itch is not accidental. It is the nervous system trying to collapse the field into something it can control. Winners contain the itch. They place it in a small, appointed window and then return to the core practices that preserve the field. The pressure shows up as relationship noise. Someone you care about mirrors panic back at you, or a gatekeeper demands a hurried timeline. This is where boundaries become an expression of receiving, not withdrawal. Winners set clear limits and explain their posture briefly. I'm in a protected period of focus. That sentence is small, but it preserves the field. The pressure looks like emotional fog, sudden doubt, dizziness, and urge to flee into busyness. Treat this as a physical signal, not a final verdict. Winners convert the fog into data. They notice where it lives in the body, name it, and apply one simple somatic practice to re-anchor themselves. The pressure may also be a thrilling surge, excitement that feels like momentum, but actually short-circuits coherence if it becomes frantic. Winners temper enthusiasm with the question, does this move expand the field or scatter it? They act from steadiness, not from adrenaline. 3 micro-rituals to use at the collapse point. Micro-rituals are not theatrics. They are economical, embodied ways to signal to the nervous system and to the field that you are choosing receiving over grasping. Use any of these in the moment the field feels like it is constricting. Micro-ritual A, the one-breath anchor. This is for a moment when panic or proof hunger tightens your chest. Step into a standing posture if possible. Place one hand on the heart, one on the belly. Breathe in slowly for 4 counts. Expand gently on the in-breath into the belly and chest. On the out-breath, release a single phrase, aloud or silently. I release form. I receive essence. Repeat once more. Then ask the single question rule. Which choice does the future me make? Notice the first somatic cue and follow it. Micro-ritual B, the folded intention. This is for decisions that feel big and for moments when you need an external, tactile anchor. Write one clear phrase on a small piece of paper, a concise identity statement like, I am the person who receives. Fold it twice. Hold the folded paper in your palm and feel its small weight, a physical contract. Place it in your pocket or a safe place for 24 hours. Each time anxiety spikes, touch the paper without opening it. The act of touching is a reminder that you've marked yourself for a different posture. At the end of 24 hours, open the paper and make one action that aligns with the declared identity. Small material acts like this help the nervous system take inner vows seriously. Micro-ritual C, the public marker. This is for times when you need to declare yourself to the field in a modest, authentic way. Say one short phrase aloud where someone can hear you or place it in a simple public gesture, a pinned note, a saved draft, a subtle post. For example, I am ready to receive what aligns. You do not need to explain, you only need to mark. Winners know that small public signals create a slight ripple in social fields and make it easier for the nervous system to stay consistent. This is not performative, it is a social-to-self contract. Short scripts you can use immediately. Use these microscripts when you need language that lands in the body rather than an argument. Before a conversation, I come from receiving. My words will carry that posture. Before an email, I write as the person who already has this. Before a meeting, I enter as the invited guest, not the beggar. These lines are brief engines of reorientation. Say them with breath and feel how the body aligns. Guided 3-minute collapse point practice you can do right now. Stand or sit in a way that allows your spine to lengthen. Place both feet on the ground. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 2, breathe out for 6. A longer exhale invites calm. As you breathe, picture the event horizon image, a thin line between the life you have and the life you are drawing close to. Imagine your future self on the other side. Notice posture, tone, movement. Feel into what it would be like to accept an ordinary offer from that self, how you would sit, how you would speak, how you would choose time.
Now bring attention back to one small practical move you can take in the next 10 minutes that matches that posture. Do it. The point is not to create drama. It is to quickly align the nervous system and take an anchored step. A short caveat about rituals. They must be matched to your temperament. If something feels showy, simplify. If it feels too small to be meaningful, make it more substantial. But always keep the underpinning. The act must shift your attention from wanting to receiving. The final guardian's disguises and how to read them. The final guardian has a sense of humor. It will appear as a perfect distraction, a seductive shortcut, or a sincere-seeming opportunity that does not belong to your long game. It will test your willingness to steward what you're being invited to hold. Guardian disguise A, the urgent opportunity. A message arrives offering what looks like a fast path. It often carries appealing language. Scale quickly, immediate exposure, a limited window. Winners ask, does this align with my current identity, or is it a plug-in that will demand frantic energy and distracting commitments? If it aligns and feels easy, say yes. If it feels urgent yet drains steadiness, say no. Guardian disguise B, the relationship saboteur. Someone close may mirror your fear and demand immediate answers or public proof. This is not always malice. It can be a projection of their own scarcity.
Winners practice compassionate boundary language. I feel supported when we keep this part of my work in a protected space. I will share results when they are ready. Guardian disguise C, the overanalysis trap. You loop through scenarios, emerging convinced you need more data. The cure here is time-limited checking and one true question. Name a strict, brief window for analysis and then choose. Winners trust the first somatic nudge after the one-question rule more than a cascade of rehashed rationalizations. 2 tactical tools to pass the Guardian. Tool 1, the 5-minute test. When doubt spikes, give yourself 5 minutes only. In that window, scan the data you need, make a note, and then close the window. This prevents the spiral of infinite evidence gathering and preserves field coherence. Tool 2, the compassionate boundary. If a relationship is battering your field, apply a compassionate boundary script. I appreciate your care. Right now, I'm protecting a creative field. I'll reconnect on X date with an update. This preserves the social field and reduces reactive entanglement. Optional insert, a short, authentic example. Optional. A founder describes how, during a quiet incubation period, she received a late-night message about a collaboration that promised immediate scale. Her first instinct was to reply and negotiate. Instead, she used the one-breath anchor, asked the single-question rule, and felt a clear somatic tilt toward not yet. She scheduled a short call for a week later. In that week, her team completed an integration that made the collaboration exponentially more valuable. When the call happened, she entered from receiving posture instead of scarcity. The offer then matched her coherence and became transformative. How to use the public commitment without theatrics. I'm going to invite you to do one short symbolic act that big-hearted winners often use at the collapse point. This is not a required magic trick. It is a practical marker, a public, small-scale declaration that aligns social and nervous system signals. Write this phrase exactly as it lands for you. I am ready to receive what is already mine. If that language feels awkward, rephrase to a version that lands in your mouth and your chest. Then, in the comments below, type your phrase as your public marker and include one single-word release immediately after it. A word that names what you let go of in order to receive. Examples: I am ready to receive what is already mine, scarcity, or I am ready to receive what is already mine, doubt. Do this only if it feels authentic. The act is symbolic. It is a small social contract that signals to you and to the field that you are choosing the receiving posture. It is not a performance requirement, and it will not guarantee outcomes. It is, however, catalytic for many because it aligns 3 systems at once: your mind, the intention, your body, the act of typing, and your social environment, the slight ripple of a public marker. If you choose not to comment, choose another marker that suits you: the folded intention piece of paper, a saved draft, or a written vow in a private journal. The point is coherence, not visibility. A deeper practice, the 24-hour field preservation protocol. When you feel the field tightening and the guardian approaching, use this short protocol to protect 3 arenas: attention, body, and social contact. Attention. Create 2 no-prove windows of 3 hours total across the day. During those hours, you will not check analytics, not seek external validation, and not take calls outside scheduled slots. Use the time to do the work that expands coherence. Body. Twice in the day, do a brief embodiment sequence. Stand, open the chest, roll your shoulders back, lengthen your spine, and do a slow 3-step walk with breathing aligned to the 4-6-8 pattern. This is a physical rehearsal of the receiving posture. Social contact. Limit deep social exchanges to people who increase your steady state. Politely decline other requests or postpone them. Explain briefly if needed. I'm in a protected period of alignment. Can we connect next Tuesday? This preserves the social field without moralizing. Why winners do tiny public acts. Winners understand that identity is partly social. You don't become the person who receives solely through private practice. You become that person in conversation with others. Tiny public acts are not performance. They are pragmatic leverage. A small, visible choice reduces the tendency to slide back into secret anxiety. If the idea of public acts feels wrong, choose a private analog: a signed note in a journal, a mark on a calendar. The mechanics are the same. You create a small external signal to support an internal posture. The nervous system frame: how repetition rewires you. When you practice the identity habits above, you are doing more than thinking differently. You are providing repeated sensory experiences that change the habit loops stored in your body. Neuroscience language is useful here as a metaphor. Repetition of a new choice strengthens particular pathways of attention and reduces habitual reactivity. This is a lay translation, not a claim of deterministic causation. In plain terms, doing the new thing over and over tells your body that the new posture is safe, and over time, it becomes the default. 2 easy daily inputs that accelerate nervous system change. Input 1, the 2-minute receipt. When something small goes well, spend exactly 2 minutes feeling the result in the body. Notice where warmth appears, let a tiny smile surface, and say, "I receive this." The practice trains the body to register wins as data, not as exceptions. Input 2, the 20-second reset. When you detect anxiety, use a 20-second grounding. Feet on floor, hands on knees, inhale 3 slow counts, exhale 5 slow counts. Bring attention to your heart center. Do not analyze. Reset and return to the practice of choosing again. Balancing action and non-action, the rhythm winners use. One frequent question is, how much action is required during incubation? The answer: consistent, selective action. Winners separate the signal from the noise and act on the signal. That action tends to be small, well-timed, and aligned with the identity posture. It is not frantic, it is not heroic, it is surgical. Consider a gardener pruning a rare plant. The gardener does not chop wildly every day. They prune intentionally when the plant needs shaping, water when the soil requires it, and protect during vulnerable weather. Your job is similar. Act with discernment and rhythm. The single question decision rule, expanded. You already know the rule in its simplest form. Ask which option the future me would choose. Here is a practical expansion to make it actionable under pressure. Step 1. Name the decision aloud in 1 short sentence. Step 2. Place your hand on your heart and breathe 2 full cycles. Step 3. Ask the future me question. What would the version of me who has the outcome choose now? Step 4. Notice the first somatic movement, a loosening, a tightening, a head turn, a soft inhale. Trust that first signal and move within a 10-minute window. Step 5. If no somatic signal arrives, choose the option that keeps your field intact, typically the option that adds steadiness and preserves attention.
This is a practice discipline. It will be noisy at first. Over time, your body becomes a reliable compass. False progress and the lure of surface wins. Be wary of surface wins, things that look like momentum but are not congruent with long-term coherence. An email that promises exposure, a metric spike that requires frantic scaling, or a partnership that pulls you into someone else's calendar can all be illusions of progress. When these appear, test them against your long-game criteria: alignment, ease, and expansion. If they fail the test, pass. A note on luck and attribution. People often misattribute causes when success appears. A sudden opportunity can feel like pure luck, but usually it is a result of many unseen inputs: practice, alignment, relationships, and the quiet choices you made to preserve the field. Winners celebrate the appearance of luck and quietly give due weight to the long invisible work. This attitude keeps humility in the system and creates a more generous field for future emergence. How to read synchronicities without becoming addicted to them. Synchronicities are valuable signals, but they can become addictive. If you begin chasing signs and rearranging your life for every coincidence, you will fragment the field.
Winners use synchronicities as data points, interesting, often helpful, but not sole evidence. They test each synchronicity by asking whether it aligns with their long-term contour and whether it feels like expansion. If both answers are yes, they follow the lead. If not, they note it and continue. A short discernment checklist for opportunities. When an opportunity appears, ask, does this align with the long-term contour of my intention? Does engaging feel expansive and steady in my body? Will this require frantic energy or will it strengthen coherence? Is someone asking me to prove myself in a way that fragments my field? If the answers trend toward alignment, proceed. If the answers trend toward fracturing, decline or defer. Optional insert, short example of a tunneling event. Optional. An artist had been practicing daily identity work while her career stalled for months. She protected a no-prove window and refused to accept a last-minute speaking gig that required her to shrink. 2 weeks later, a curator reached out with an offer for a group show that finally placed her work in front of the right audience. She described the event as sudden, but when she looked back, she saw the cumulative discipline of boundaries and practices as the real cause. How to steward success once it arrives. When the field reorganizes and the phase transition occurs, new pressures arrive, new expectations, new demands, and potential identity drift. Winners prepare for this phase before it arrives. First, normalize the idea that success will test the new identity. You will be tempted to slip back into old modes, to manage outcomes with narrow control. Remember that the same coherence practices that got you through the field will help you integrate success without losing the posture that created it. Second, maintain 2 daily habits even after visible success: the 2-minute receipt and the 20-second reset. These simple practices prevent drift and keep your nervous system anchored. Third, expand your social field intentionally. Invite a small council of people who model receiving posture and who will give grounded feedback. Winners do not assume that success will automatically refine them. They curate the people who will hold them steady. The ethical dimension, responsibility and ripple. Part of what makes winners distinct is not just private alignment, but the way their presence reshapes fields. When you practice coherence, you alter social and morphological fields in your circles. This is not a license for selfishness. It is a responsibility to act with integrity and care. Winners use influence to invite others into steadier practices, to model clear boundaries, and to preserve the dignity of those around them. A few cautionary ethics checks. Do your practices benefit only you? If so, consider small ways to redistribute value or attention. Are your public signals truthful and humble? Avoid grandiosity. When invited to share resources, first ask if the action preserves coherence for others as well as for you. The emergence signs, what to expect and how to track them. Once coherence accumulates, you will see patterns rather than isolated events.
Pattern 1. Cascading facilitation. One solved problem leads to another, not because you worked longer, but because the field reoriented. Pattern 2. Aligned introductions. Conversations appear that feel right rather than frantic. Pattern 3. Resource condensation. The resources you need converge rather than scatter. Pattern 4. Quiet confidence. Your internal state shifts so that decisions are faster and less costly emotionally. Track these signs without turning them into proof of finality. Use them as checkpoints of health, not as goals themselves. A practical 6-week plan to move from initiation to sustained coherence. Week 1. Orientation. Establish the morning identity check, 2-minute receipt, and the 4-6-8 breath. Keep the no-prove windows short but protected. Week 2. Embodiment. Add the 3-step confident walk daily and the folded intention ritual on decisions. Week 3. Boundary work. Implement compassionate boundaries with one draining relationship or task. Practice the 5-minute test. Week 4. Social curation. Increase time with one person who represents the future you. Reduce time with one person who fragments the field. Week 5. Decision discipline. Apply the single question rule to 3 real decisions during the week. Log results. Week 6. Integration. Evaluate emergent signs, take one strategic risk that aligns with the future me choice, and protect a deep no-prove window of 4 hours. Evaluation is not about moral success or failure. It's a tuning process. Adjust with curiosity and gentleness. A pragmatic answer to a common worry. What if I'm wrong? You will sometimes choose and discover the choice was not ideal. This is not failure. Winners treat these moments as calibration, not as collapse. Use the learning with compassion. Extract the useful data and return to practices without shame. The system is probabilistic. Your posture increases likelihood, it does not guarantee a particular outcome. This modest stance keeps you resilient. A brief myth-busting moment again. You will be tempted to reduce the work to one idea. Visualize and it happens, or post a phrase and you succeed. Those reductions are seductive because they promise simplicity. Real transformation is messy and steady. It includes discipline, embodied practice, and occasional realignment. The metaphors we used from physics and neuroscience are useful because they help you think differently, but they are not magical equations. Treat them as lenses, not laws. The climactic invitation, a symbolic micro-ritual. If you feel ready, choose one of the 3 micro-rituals above and do it now.
If you choose the public marker, here is the precise invitation. Type the phrase that lands in your chest. I am ready to receive what is already mine. Then add one single word release, a word that names what you put down to step into receiving. For example, doubt, rush, or scarcity. Post it in the comments as a short, sober signal to the field and to yourself. Again, only do this if it feels true. This is not a magic spell. It is a public-to-self compact, a small social action that aligns the nervous system and the social environment. If you do not want to post publicly, perform the act privately. Write the phrase and the release word on a slip of paper and carry it in your pocket for a day. Integration. What happens next and how to stay steady. After the ritual, whether public or private, your job is ordinary. Return to the practices. You have shifted a marker. Now you must steward the field. Protect attention. Maintain the no-prove windows. Notice evidence, but do not become dependent on it. Keep the 2-minute receipt and the 20-second reset. These habits are the infrastructure of coherence. As events rearrange, keep asking the 3 discernment questions. Is this aligned? Does it feel easy? Does it increase coherence? If the answer tends toward yes, proceed. If not, hold the field and wait. Final small reflections before the closing image. You were not chosen because of luck alone. You were chosen because your attention arrived at a threshold at a precise moment. Winners have often been practicing quietly for a long time. They are not special because they have a secret formula.
They are steady because they chose to rewire their posture, body, and decisions in the small, repeated ways that build coherence. This transmission is a condensed map. It will not substitute for your lived practice. It is a mirror and a set of tools. Use them, adapt them, and above all, be compassionate with yourself in the work. Final CTA and invitation for those ready to go deeper. If this material resonates and you want a systematic, step-by-step guide to the full framework, with expanded practices, audio-guided micro-rituals, and a workbook to help you track coherence, there is a deeper resource linked in the description and pinned comment titled Beyond the Frequencies. It is optional, structured, and designed for people who want a practical system to integrate these practices over 3 months. Use it only if it feels aligned. There is no pressure. The work is this: you choose to practice and steward the field. Closing image and final reassurance. Imagine a seed folded against winter soil. Nothing dramatic seems to happen at first. Then, beneath the surface, a quiet chemistry shifts. Cells align, pressure builds, and a small, exact timing allows the shoot to surge upward. From above, it looks sudden. From below, it is steady, patient, and coherent. That is the pattern winners follow.
They protect the chemistry. They stop digging at the seed. And when the time comes, the shoot breaks the surface in a way that feels like lightning. You are at that threshold. You have tools. You have small rituals and a nervous system plan. You have a language to describe what is happening and a map for how to respond. Remember the title. Discover why winners see this video before they succeed. Winners encountered this transmission not because it is a magic ticket, but because they tuned themselves to a frequency that allowed them to pass the final guardian. They practiced identity, protected attention, and acted from receiving. You can do the same. The world is responsive to steady coherence. Choose now to hold the posture of the person who already receives. Release the grip. Receive the gift. Step into the posture. The field is turning. When you are ready, the world will begin rearranging around your new alignment.